Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am Monet and you're watching Life is Monet. This video is going to consist of another fun vlog in which I have swapped control of my TBR with a friend of mine, and this vlog is going to be with Monty from It's Monty Price. Both Monty and me are on a book buying restriction for this entire year. He has decided that he only wants to allow himself to purchase one book a month for the whole year for 12 total, and I am only allowing myself to purchase 2 books a month for the entire year for a total of 24, with an extra one as an option for 25. So we thought, with us both being on a book buying restriction, that we would utilize our libraries for the sake of this vlog. So this is going to consist of, if I don't own a copy of the books that he has chosen for me to read, we'll be going to grab them from my local library. Monty has sent me his clip, so let me just pull that up. I'm nervous. Monty said he might have chose violence, and yeah, I'm very nervous.
What is up, BookTube, and hello to Monet. It's nice to be over here. I am here with the 3 books that I think I would love to watch you vlog about. Some of these were me choosing violence. I'm going to get that out of the way just right up front with you. So I did provide an alternate, which I think is something that you will be able to get through at a decent pace, at a quick pace. And then for the actual 3 picks, 2 of them are things that I have read. 1 I have not read, but also 2 of the 3 you've expressed interest in. So again, I think that these are pretty solid recommendations. There was a 3rd one that is on your want to read shelf, but when I saw how big, like when I saw the stack, I was like, no, I can't do that to her. So the first book I think you need to go to your library and pick up, get on hold, is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. This is the first book in the Millennium series. I only read the first 3 books. I think as a trilogy, it's cute. This book right here functions as a standalone, so you'll get a complete story here with Lisbeth Blomquist. I think his name is Michael. So you'll get a full complete story here with the option to continue on, but if you are just like, I'm gooch, then you can stop here. But this book I think is excellent. 10 out of 10 would recommend it. The second book is Vagabonds. This is a science fiction moment. We are on Mars. There are some small bits of the book that are set in space, but this is really just kind of like political intrigue, character introspection. It's technically sci-fi because again, we are on the planet Mars, but it's more character focused, and you've expressed interest in this title, so here's your opportunity. The 3rd book I think you should read is Fall of Giants by Ken Follett. When I did my hauling unread books, you said I was selling you on this, so here's your opportunity to pick up this first book. Again, this is kind of mean because this book is this book is 1,000 pages. Oh no, it's not. It's not. It's only 900. It is 985, so not quite 1,000. But this is also the book in the Zoom that I said if you wanted to buddy read, we can buddy read. And then because those were so chunky, my alternate pick is another thing that I really love, and that is My Brother's Husband. This is the first volume by Gengoro Tagame. This, we follow Mike Ross, who is going to visit his deceased husband's family in Japan. So we get to see him meeting his dead husband's twin brother, his little niecey niece, and the niece is the best part of this book. So wholesome, so cute. I would put both of these volumes 1 and 2. It's a complete duology, but I'm just gonna put 1. Just read this first one. I think it's gonna be a cute time. So feel free to swap out any of the 3 because they are all rather long. So yeah, those are my picks. I can't wait to see the vlog. Can't wait to see your reaction. I'm definitely looking forward to how this is gonna go for you.
It is actually very hilarious that he put Fall of the Giants by Ken Follett on this TBR, because for him, I put The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. And that is very funny that we recommended the same author to each other, But I think The Pillars of the Earth is like 890 pages, and he just said The Fall of the Giants is about 900 pages. So it looks like we'll both be reading some Ken Follett in our vlogs. I own the entire trilogy for The Fall of the Giants, and I also own the entire trilogy for The Pillars of the Earth. So I don't even have to go to my library for that. Love that. I also own Vagabonds already, so that is another book that I don't have to borrow from my library, and I am knocking down 2 books from my TBR, so I will be reading that. I don't know anything about The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, so I need to look up the synopsis for that, because it's been recommended to me by a subscriber before, but I never looked it up. So a lot of my Goodreads mutual friends that have read this book have all given it 5 stars. It's a mystery thriller. So I am interested. I kind of want to read it. But I also want to read the graphic novel. I am going to try to get both the graphic novel and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo from my local library. It actually was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I don't appreciate how Monty tried to blame me for the choices that he chose, but I will accept it nonetheless. I just reached the 200-page mark in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and this book is not at all what I thought it was going to be. Now, I've seen the name of this book everywhere, but I never knew what the book was about. I just went with the title and assumed that we were going to be following a girl with a dragon tattoo. But it is not that. I also thought that this was going to be a thriller. It is also not really a thriller. This is a very complex and slow mystery. So we're following essentially 2 main characters, but they have such a full life that we're getting an overabundance of details. Like, there are so many moments of like just descriptive language in this book that I did not expect. Like, there was 1 page of literally just computer information. Like, one of our main characters, her computer broke, and she did a whole like comparison down to like the backlighting of the screen, the Bluetooth capabilities, the RPM, the processors, and like the old MacBook versus the most up-to-date version of the MacBook, and like an old HP or like an old Dell. And I was just like, this is a lot of details that makes me wonder if this book had an editor. So many moments in this book I feel like could have been chopped or could have been separated. And so let me back up a little bit. We have this guy who just got in trouble for libel, and so he has to pay a lot of money to this person who he printed this article about in his newspaper and in his magazine journal, and he also has to go to jail for I think 3 or 4 months. His career has essentially gone down because he went from being like a well-renowned reporter to now someone who is considered to just print whatever without following up the information and getting facts about it. And some random person hires another investigator to look into him, and then they end up hiring him to do research on this woman who went missing from this very rich family like 30 freaking years ago. And then the investigator who was hired to look into the journalist is still doing her own separate research, and there's so many elements to each like storyline or to like each person. Everyone is extremely complex, and there's so many people in the story, so many moving parts to the story, and an overwhelming amount of details that have the reader like, I don't know what information matters and what information doesn't matter. I am 200 pages into this book, and I really have nowhere to even start in terms of like forming an opinion or a hypothesis or a theory. Like, I don't, like, so much is happening in this book. I do see, however, why Monty enjoys this book as much as he does, because these characters are like very complex, very complicated, very flawed, very messy. I do enjoy this level of commentary that I feel like I'm getting from the author. I feel like he's trying to say something. I just don't know what it is. And there's a difference between an author who just like writes a story because they just have this idea in their head and they want to get it out, and so they create this whole world in terms of like creative writing. And then there's other people who like use it as like a coping mechanism or a way to convey a message that they otherwise would not be able to. This author has done some very liberal things with the story, especially in terms of women and like violence against women, and that seems to be a repetitive theme throughout the book. And I don't know where we're going. I feel like he's trying to say something and it might be going over my head at this point. I don't think that this is a book that just popped up in his head. I don't think that. This is too intricate, too well thought out, and too opinionated. There is a heavy amount of self-insert from the author. I don't know. My mind is everywhere. My mind is scattered. This is probably like a very unorganized and like chaotic update. But yeah, those are just my initial thoughts. I will be back when I finish this book, and hopefully my thoughts will make more sense. So I have managed to finish The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and I am unsure what I want to rate the book. I feel like it's a 3.5. There are so many things that I really enjoyed about this book, but the way that the mystery was drawn out and the pacing of the story continuously took me out of the book. That may just be a me thing, because usually when I read mystery books and they are this long, I genuinely don't usually enjoy them no matter what's happening. Like I mentioned earlier, this book has several very flawed characters, and you get to follow them in their lives. And there are other interesting things that are happening as you go throughout the book. And the author does a really good job of tying those all together. I really did enjoy the commentary and just his take on violence against women and like vigilantism. I just feel like the descriptive language in this book was too much for my preference, and it honestly could have been 100 pages shorter. I feel like there might have been 50 or so pages of just descriptive language that I could have gotten from a movie. Like if I was watching this, a lot of the nuances to like the background and the environment and all of the description that we were getting, I feel like I would much rather have seen the visual of that. I would much prefer, I think, if I got the atmospheric setting and then the mystery, or got this messy entanglement of our main characters' lives and the mystery. But I feel like the messy depictions and messy interactions between our main characters on top of the overly descriptive language was just too much sidetracking for me, and I found myself just wanting to get back to the mystery throughout the book. When we got to the main part of the mystery, it felt a little bit anticlimactic to me, and the story also kept going because we had to resolve the issues of our characters even outside of the mystery. I don't think that I'm going to continue with the series. I am going to watch the movie later today, to see if I enjoy it, because I've heard really good things about it. Okay, full disclosure, I DNF'd this book softly, like a soft DNF, 2 times. I did finish, however. I did make it to the end. There was just something about the book that made me want to continue reading, even though it was very hard for me to fall into the story. Like, I was very well aware of every word, of every period, of every page that I turned. It never felt like I was fully invested in the story. There was this barrier that was preventing me from just really enjoying the full-scale scope of the story. So many things about the book just felt so distant, like the POVs and the shift in the POVs and the way that they're telling the story, and like the writing in the book is very flat, it's very monotone. There's just so many things about the way that the book was written that did not work for me. However, it was just interesting enough to where when I closed it, I remembered it in my head more fondly than I felt when I was actually reading it. And so part of that is the reason why I'm like, let me just finish this book, because every time I try to like DNF it and walk away, and I plan to update this vlog and say, hey, like the book didn't work for me, I'm constantly thinking about it. And so I made it to the end. I did finish the book. I feel like I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 stars. This is like another book where I feel like there was just so much commentary, social commentary, and like this deep dive, introspective look into humanity and like the way that we interact with each other and perspectives, the way that we judge people, assimilations. There's so many things in this book, and part of me is just like, Monty must really love books that like have this greater meaning to it, which is something that I did not really expect, because the social commentary in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is like knocking the reader over the head the whole time that you're reading the book. And it's the same way with Vagabonds. So in this book, there are some people who just returned from Earth, and they're Martians. They actually are citizens of Mars. But a while ago, almost a century ago, Mars went to war with Earth for its independence, and there was this huge war. And then after the war was over, Earth and Mars did not talk to each other for a long time, until these groups of delegates was sent to Earth to kind of like open up this political exchange, like dialogue between the two planets. And one of the characters that goes to Earth, or just returned from Earth, realizes that she was never initially supposed to be on the flight there, and she is the granddaughter of like the supreme chancellor of Mars, so she's kind of like the princess. Her perspective of Mars is very different after returning from Earth, and she's unsure as to like how to really fit back into this Martian social climate coming from Earth. And like there's some stark contrast between Mars and Earth, and like Mars is more of a society that is built on collectivism and everyone just chipping in and doing their part. Earth is all about money. It's not really about creating anything or like being artistic, but really just putting a dollar sign on everything, how much you can sell something for, if you can be the first one to sell it. These societies are so very different between Mars and Earth, a collectivist aspect versus individualistic society, and so many things like capitalism and communism. There's just so many things that are happening in this book. And because of that, I feel like if I was to say specifically one thing that I liked about it, is that it is a futuristic classic. I don't think that the commentary and the allegories that the author made throughout this book would work prior to when it was written. I'm not sure when it was written, but this is like a modern day classic because the author is clearly doing these comparisons between China and the US. And I just feel like for you to really read this book and understand what the author is saying, it only works in the context of the modern day. And so I feel like this is a book that will appreciate over time, because usually within our society, historical distance makes things clearer for us. When we can take a step back a couple of generations, a couple of decades, maybe even a century from isolated event, we could be like, aha, this was the Renaissance, this was the Dark Ages, this was, the Cold War, this is, all these things that make sense, and you're able to dissect it much more. And so this, I would say, technically is a modern classic, but in order for you to like fully understand and like appreciate what it is the author did in this book, I feel like it still needs a little bit more historical distance. And that is probably why I felt like the writing was just like so monotone and so flat, because it has that like classical writing feel to it, where what's really great about the book is your consumption, your takeaways, your analysis, and not so much the book itself. There's so many classes I can think of where if you actually read the classic, it is rather boring and not fun at all. But the conversations and the thought-provoking aspects that these classics bring about is what makes that book worthy of being held as a classic. And that is exactly how I feel about Vagabonds. I don't know if it's a book that I would recommend to people, because I would imagine that a lot of people have DNF'd this book just from the way that it is written. And then the shift in the POVs makes it unsure of like who's important, who to really connect with. One of our main characters that we follow from the beginning, they seem to fade away almost entirely at the end of the book. So it's just like, what is happening here? Like you have a hard time connecting with all the characters. I really need to just like hear Monty's review and see what it was about the book that he really loved, because I can only appreciate the book as it stands for this author having the mind to like analyze a current society, like one that we're living in, and like pointing out all of these characteristics that we witness every day and being like, aha, this is what this is going to look like in the future. This is what the next generation is going to think of us. This is what, is going to lead to more protests and revolutions, and like life is a cycle. Even just like giving this review, it's proof that in hindsight, once you close the book, everything that's left with you is just like a good feeling, but reading the book itself is almost excruciating. I finished both of the graphic novels and I really enjoyed them a lot. I feel like if I was to rate them, I would give them as a whole 5 stars, but I don't think that I would rate them individually. There were so many things again, Monty and his larger message and like larger social conflict at play in the stories that he has picked for me to read. This one was no different. Our main character, his brother or twin brother, actually passed, and he had spent the last few years of his life living in Canada, and he was married to a man. He has never really been fully accepting of the fact that his brother was queer and that he was married to a man. And so after his brother has passed, his brother's husband comes to visit, and his daughter immediately falls in love with her uncle, and he's so kind and nice, and like our main character is going through this motion of like shedding his subconscious and like also conscious preconceived notions about, you know, queer men and gay marriages. But also, even more so than that, our main character is raising his daughter as a single divorced father, and her mom is the one that like kind of works a lot, and he stays home and takes care of her and like does a lot of house stuff. And so there's a lot of stigmatism around him doing that, and like whether or not he's ruining his daughter by not letting her live with her mother, and like him being essentially a homemaker. And so even beyond him going through this radicalization and like evolution of fully understanding like, you know, queer marriages and being fully not just accepting but supportive and being a full ally, but also him realizing that like I have to defend myself as a stay-at-home father with my daughter, and then I find myself having to defend the fact that her uncle is queer. And like there was even a moment in the book where like the school didn't want her to talk about the fact that she had a queer uncle, and it just really reminded me of like things that are going on today in our schools with the Don't Say Gay bill. And he was basically like, she should be able to say, you know what I'm saying, that she's proud of her uncle. She should be able to mention him. All of the messages in this book I really enjoyed. I feel like I want to get me some physical copies and recommend them to people to read. So overall, I enjoyed these 2 graphic novels the most, and they would be like at the top. And I feel like Vagabonds and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo would be equal, but like at number 3. I did not enjoy them as much, as not even close to what I did with My Brother's Husband. So like My Brother's Husband's number 1, and the other 2 are tied for like the 3rd spot. There's no number 2 in this vlog, but I learned a lot about Monty's reading taste. It was definitely more extensive than I expected it to be. I definitely will be more conscious of books that he's read, and like overall the messages that might be contained in those books about, you know, the current social climate and like humanity and just all of those things. I think that I will now, when I watch Monty's videos and his channels and read his reviews on Goodreads, I will be thinking about that and just being like, do I want to be enlightened? Do I want my perspective and my mind to be opened wide? Because if Monty gave it 5 stars, then that's probably what's going to happen. Thank you for making it to the end of this vlog, and I will see you guys next time.